Hello, Malhar. How are you?
I'm good. Good evening, Ashok. How are you, Singapore?
Uh, a bit wet and warm, but okay, fine. And yourself?
I am good. I'm not. Yeah, it's not warm for me. I'm kind of chilled at this
Okay, that's
moment.
nice. That's nice. And for all of our audience who's locked into the show, welcome to Leadership in Flow Asia Season 3. I'm so excited because uh, this show has been going on since 2022. And we started off by talking about leaders in Asia and trying to understand what ticks them, what are the insights we get from them. And over time, we realized that there are a lot of quiet leaders who are very impactful in Asia. And we started looking at three areas, from a growth point of view: their personal growth, leadership growth, and business growth. And today, we've got someone very interesting because I don't remember us doing this level of topics yet, but it was very interesting that you found this gentleman. Please tell us a little bit about Christopher Raj Anthony, Mala.
How I found him.
Yep. How did you find him?
I was very lucky because we had planned something else for this, right? And okay, over the weekend, I was at a program and I met, of course, Christopher Raj, who was actually introducing to the idea of counseling. I was very impressed by, I would say, I said this to him. I said, I love the way he was assertive. Just loved it. Why? Uh, because I think, he was guiding a group of teachers, I would say.
Mhm.
And he had the clarity. And then, of course, me being me, I checked in with him and asked him whether, what he does and all of that. And he immediately told me the kind of work he does. And one of those things that we often don't talk about where leaders are concerned is,
Exactly.
do leaders need therapy? Because we hear of coaching, and
Mhm.
coaching is very well established, but we've not heard of counseling. But before I bring Christopher Raj Anthony on, right, I must say he's got a very, very interesting background. He is an educator, I would say, in at heart,
Nice.
the soul of a healer.
Okay. Wow.
Okay. uh, and the mind that is, I would say, very, very objective.
Hmm.
And I thought that three combination was pretty impressive for me because very often when we talk about counseling or, we, it's very easy to slip into being very emotional.
Yep.
It's very easy to slip into, being an empath. But
Nice.
what I saw Chris doing was that, he showed us how it's important for us to be compassionate, yet very objective, right?
Nice.
And yet have the soul of a healer because your intention and objective is to help the person heal. And I was really, really impressed with his clarity and assertiveness. You'll see how bossy he is when he comes on screen afterwards, okay?
Okay. All
And
right.
without further ado, I think we
Yes.
should
Let's bring on the compassionate, educating healer.
yeah, thank you.
Right.
And
And
I,
hi,
I,
Christopher.
I think she meant objective.
I had a
okay,
compassion in between
Right.
also,
I was
so I
taking
decided.
notes here. I was taking notes, I was
Right.
taking notes of how Mala described me. I just met her on Sunday. She said I'm an educator and healer at heart, right? A soul of a healer, right?
Mhm.
Educator, and I'm very objective. Yeah, I suppose, yeah, I'd have to reflect on that
All
and get
right.
back to you, Mala. Right. Anyway, thank you for having me on this show.
No, thank you
thanks,
for
thanks
saying
for saying
yes.
yes. I know that
Right.
you had a very busy day. Thanks for joining us and joining us at such short notice. I really thought, I was really worried if I don't get him this week, he did say I have to wait a couple of weeks, if not months. So I decided better bring him in while I can. But before, we introduce Chris again, yes, our James Wong has actually joined us, our captain from the sea. Hello, everyone. Hi, Malar. Wow, new haircut. Hey, hey. Greetings from Penang. Greetings to you, James. Thanks for joining us. And I'm sure you'll have very exciting questions for Christopher afterwards.
I'm
Okay,
sure
let's
he's not
get on.
referring to my haircut, right?
No, I am also
Okay, let's
quite
go.
sure he's referring to. Okay, I show it's not about you, it's about Chris today. Okay.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
our topic today is a therapeutic session insights to help leaders, right? Chris, help us understand what do you mean by therapeutic session?
In a very simple way, I would say it relates to counseling or psychotherapy,
Mhm.
but more so in a um, very light way or light form of understanding that would refer to counseling. And counseling can be seen as a form of therapeutic healing session because it has to do very much with what goes on inside of us, the mind.
Nice. Of
Yeah.
course, I'm being the naughty me. Very often, counseling is associated to mental health.
Mm. It
So
is.
if we associate counseling to leaders,
Mm.
are our leaders having mental health challenges?
Really, you're putting me on live and asking me this question.
Yeah, I
But
couldn't prepare you for this because I wanted to see your expression.
that's right. Yeah, I'm going to sign you up for some counseling sessions later, Muller. And that's I'm saying this because I know you quite personally as a friend. So yeah. Um, well, I would say that if we were to actually come to have an understanding of the fact that we all need a degree of awareness of who we are, right? And by that I mean our thoughts, right? And how we feel as a result of our thoughts and the resulting action, based upon what we think or see the world as how we see the world around us. Yes, um, I would say that generally it would be good for everyone to, you know, um, get a thought check, not a head check, a thought check, or a thought resulting in a feeling check, and that would be good. And that's generally what a therapeutic session does for people. I mean, as a counselor, as a psychological counselor, that's what I've been trained to do, right? Help put a
Okay.
mirror in front of people and then, you know, let them see who they are, describe themselves, and then decide what they want to do and where they want to go.
Nice, nice.
Mm.
So, okay, so I need a counseling session with you. I totally agree. My counselors usually love me.
Right.
Let me do that. But let's go back to the original question. Very
Which is,
often, I mean, even with
mm,
anyone else, when we talk about counseling, there's a taboo, right? When we talk about mental health, as much as we're aware about it, there's a taboo to it, right? So I
mm,
think the reason I asked the question is really very much, maybe we need to get out of the taboo because leaders also need a space to check in, and very often, like what I had mentioned just now, coaching is widely accepted in the corporate world. How widely accepted is counseling, and what's the difference?
I think it's gaining popularity, and perhaps, in my personal opinion, I would think not associating with the very word taboo would help. When we say the word taboo, there's a taboo on mental health. If we disassociate, it helps. If we disassociate the word taboo from mental health, everyone has a taboo about mental health or getting psychological help and so on. That's what nobody says that about coaching. No one
Exactly,
says,
exactly.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and I know that you do work with a lot of leaders, which is why
Mm,
I was very excited to bring you on board, right? So, in organizations where you work with leaders,
mm.
how is the taboo erased maybe from their vocabulary? So, what
No,
do these organizations do differently that leaders are okay to
mhm.
go for what we will typically call counseling?
Okay. First of all, let me share with you from my experience, right? Okay, I run a lot of workshops. I do a lot of training programs and workshops. And from these workshops, I generally bring about an awareness of the importance of psychological health, right? And and also run workshops where we talk about certain topics that teaches people techniques on how they can actually have better psychological health. Therefore, what happens is, Mother and Ashok, I'll share with you, people are naturally interested. Some of them come and tell me, I want to learn more about this. That's number one, right? And can I see you for a bit? That's number two. Yeah, so they come for those little intermittent sessions, in between tea breaks and lunch and so on, right? Okay, and just and they start talking about very big topics, and I can't give them any insight or help share, bring them to an awareness, right, within that short period of 10-15 minutes, where it's just about 15 minutes before tea break or lunch ends, and people are walking back into the session. So yeah, so there is an acceptance that having good psychological health is important. That's number one. Number two, it's people generally, everyone wants to find some form of healing. So therefore, there is generally an acceptance. And I'd like to go back to that a statement I made earlier. If we disassociate the word taboo from seeking psychological help or counseling, right, it would really help.
Nice, nice.
If that makes sense.
It would. Well, I think to say it won't make sense, right? Because
Yeah.
I think you've put it very clearly. So what I'm getting from you is that the acceptance that you have seen when you run workshop is that when people seek it on their own and they can see how it's effective and how it's creating awareness about themselves, and then resolve probably some issues in their life towards really a healthier psychological health. Who wouldn't want that, right? So
Absolutely.
when people experience it, the taboo disappears on its own. But very often, people who do have challenges, right? Very often, when you say, "Would you like to see a counselor?" there tends to be a general pushback, even though it has helped a lot of people. So it is really good that you help us clarify that. All of us have psychological health that we need to look after, and sometimes it get messed up either by ourselves or people around us, and we can meet Dr. Chris, who can help us no,
Right.
or the likes of Dr. Chris, right? So yeah, and that's good. So let's look at therapeutic sessions, right? When we talk about therapeutic sessions for insight for leaders, give us an overview of how we can understand this, because we do have some people watching on LinkedIn, and I'm sure they have interesting questions to ask, right? So why therapeutic? Why do leaders need help, and why do they need therapeutic session?
I think for a fact that everyone needs help, and there's a general acceptance of seeking help. So there's no pushback actually, Mother. If I can safely say, because where I do counseling, actual counseling work, right? Okay, I would attribute, like, besides workshops, when I'm actually in our counseling clinics, right? What happens is there are many inquiries, and people generally seek help for uh, phew, uh, a wide variety of reasons. Generally, is to actually address the psychological pain that they are experiencing. So, firstly, I would say that, yeah, generally people want to find that healing. So, since leaders are also people, they could be, they would definitely benefit from this. I would say inner healing, for the lack of a better word, right?
Yeah, so I like the fact that you say you put it that everyone needs help and leaders are human, and I think that's important because very often we think leaders are superheroes, right? So they shouldn't think or shouldn't feel any pain. So and you've put it very clearly for us that they face pain. So can you maybe take us through or help us understand what kind of pain do leaders often experience when they come to you?
Okay. Firstly, I'll say that yeah, everyone seeks help when they want to. So the word that I wrote here when you were making your summary earlier was it's voluntary. When
Nice.
they actually come and seek the help, like as I was sharing from my experience, when people actually come during my sessions, right, my workshops, right, and they sit with me, it's rather voluntary, so they want to. So everybody has this prompting, I need to speak to someone, I need to reach out to someone. When you're something is troubling you and you feel like you need to reach out to a friend, that's what you do, right? You
Nice.
just pick up the phone and call, right? Or you text them, hey, how are you doing? So, can I ask you something? Right? So everybody reaches out. So that's a natural instinct. So it's
Right.
voluntary. right? So what happens is people have this natural inclination to break away from the very taboo that you mentioned earlier,
Mm.
right? So take cognizance of this, right? What happens is through that voluntary, I would say, action of people wanting to reach out to basically, I wouldn't say to seek help or I need help, but hey, let's check if what I'm thinking is right. We can
Mm.
phrase that, so let's look and see if I can find a different perspective to my thoughts,
As
right?
you say this, right, even in over the weekend, the workshop, Ashok, when he said this, I was thinking that, so many people come and talk to me either during the workshop or off the workshops, right? I want to bounce off some idea with you. I have a problem. I need to talk to you. And I was going to say, I'll make a great counselor. And Chris stopped me from saying that because he put up something legal. So it'll be illegal for me to call myself a counselor. Maybe you can just give us a quick introduction to who is a counselor and what is the legal
Yeah,
requirement
yes,
before
that's right.
I
Yeah.
get all of
In
us.
Malaysia, there is a counseling act, right,
Okay.
that governs. So I'm not a legal expert here, but I'm just sharing with you what I know about the law, right? There is a counseling act that actually governs that only registered counselors with the Board of Counsellors Malaysia can perform counseling. And where they perform counseling, they are supposed to put up their certification, like the registration as well as the we call it the practicing certificate, right? We have a practicing
Nice.
certificate, right? So you have to display that, right? You have to display that to show that
Mm.
you are legally registered, right? And therefore you have the license to practice counseling,
Okay. So I'm
because
not a
they
counselor.
yeah, and so that's by law, that's a requirement. So anyone who says that I'm doing counseling, any form of counseling, right, they have to clarify that they are registered, so therefore I'm licensed to provide this service. And there's an act for it. It's Ballet. I think it's 580 Act, Counsellors Act 580. That's in Malaysia. I'm not. Maybe Ashok can share some light whether it's the same in Singapore, but I'm sure there is. There is a counselling board there, which also requires practicing counsellors to register, right, so that their practice is regulated.
Nice. Nice.
Mm,
Okay.
right.
So anyone who needs counseling
Mm.
from me, I won't be offering it anymore since I'm not
But if there's any
licensed.
consolation, Malar, I'd like to add on to what you just shared. See what happens is that you say that people during your workshops, people come up to you and want to share. So that's already sort of like disassociating themselves from the taboo. That's a good thing, right? So what Mala needs to do is just refer them.
I'll be the bridge to pass them on to you for sure because you
Right.
made
And there are other counselors as well. You can look up the
okay.
counseling board, right? Okay.
Keep
So
going.
yeah, that's good. So yeah,
Yeah.
go on, please. Yeah.
Thank you. Now,
Mm.
I am very interested to dive into some of the case studies that you've prepared for us, right? But help us
Mm.
understand what is the difference between coaching and counseling.
That's very interesting because I'm sure there are a lot of people who are trained coaches out there. I've been coached once as well. In my previous workplace, I've actually attended a coaching session. But I think if I were not to engage with on a difference, I would just say what counseling does. What counseling does is it actually deep dives into the person's exploring the person's emotional health and state. Something could be really bugging them. So let's just clarify, this is what counseling is. So we really don't need to make a comparison, right? Coaching is coaching. You set goals, you achieve the goals, and you check on your milestones. I mean, that's what I understood from the coaching that I went for. And of course, the coach, sometimes I see them acting as a counselor simply because they're using the communication skills that a psychological counselor would use, like paraphrasing, summarizing, right, checking on content if it's correct, and checking on our feelings, how we feel, right, and what stopped us, and so on. So because of this techniques, communication techniques, right, sometimes there is counseling and coaching is seen to overlap. I hope that sheds some light. I can't hear you there,
Thank
Mal.
you very much for that,
That's helpful.
Chris.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is counseling is about understanding your emotional state. Would that be a fair statement?
That would be a fair statement, but it is not a overarching. I
Sure.
would say it's not a complete definition of counseling.
Okay.
Counseling actually defines a helping relationship between a person who is trained and the
Mhm.
person who wants to actually understand and resolve the emotional pain that they're going through, for the lack of a better word. But what would help is I could share with you, and if Malad would like to prompt some the slides that we have actually gone through, I'll share with you what actually happens in a therapeutic session.
Nice.
Okay.
If that
Okay.
might help. Yeah.
Just before you step into that, Suresh Munyandi says it's lonely at the top. Right circle of people could help leaders to navigate things, failing which external circle of support might be required. I keep a few good mentors around me to stay afloat. Now, this is
That
very
really
interesting.
helps.
Yeah. So when he talks about mentors now, is that a different dimension to counseling again?
Totally different dimension.
Okay.
Right.
Do you want to explain a little bit more how mentoring would
Right.
differ now?
My mentor put that idea in my head to take up the counseling about
Okay.
it was right. That was about maybe but for 20 21 years ago.
Okay.
21 years ago was my mentor who actually saw that potential in me and said,
Mhm.
I think you should do counseling.
Okay.
And and
I
this
we
is a
are
mentor
very
whom
grateful.
I've known since 1991.
Nice, nice.
Right.
So
And I've
we are
worked as
very grateful for your mentor to have prompted you to do this.
that's
So
right.
Mother, let's bring up that slide to help to understand the insights to help leaders.
Hmm.
Yep. Doing that now. For some reason.
No worries.
Yeah. So I'm just describing a simple helping model, but
Mhm.
something that most counselors or psychological counselors will be very familiar with, right? It's these three stages of what we call a helping model that happens. The first stage would be like exploring a client's existing situation, what they're going through, and of course this is not just as simple as that statement. Sometimes what the clients themselves say, right, may not be the actual problem. So that's where the exploration goes in rather deep, right? It may not be as simple as, I'm having a conflict with someone, but,
Mm,
why are you having this conflict?
mm,
What does it
Mhm.
tell you about yourself?
mm, mm,
Is this a prevalent thing with in situations like this, you always end up having a conflict,
mm,
right? What's going on in your thought process? Why are you reacting this way? So that's what happens in that exploration context, right? And generally, the outcome of stage one would be awareness.
Mm.
Awareness. So if I'm aware of, hey, yep, you know what, and even like what Suresh mentioned earlier, is sometimes when the mentor just sort of like prompts a few questions over, say, a cup of tea or a coffee or a drink in the evening, just a chat, and it prompts a few questions, and he says, well, why don't you look at it that way? It's just, oh yeah, right. That's a good one. So that insight that you get is awareness. And
mm,
what the mentor had done, right, is actually help the mentee, right, okay, explore their existing situation. So as you can see here, now I'll answer Ashok's question when he asks, is there a difference? No, because like in coaching, or whether you're doing mentoring, coaching, or even counseling for that matter,
Mhm.
since you're applying the same communication techniques,
Okay.
right,
mm,
it's always seemed to have some overlap.
Right.
mm, mm,
Yeah, right. It's like just asking someone, how they see things and so on. So that's the first stage, exploring a person's existing situation, right? Okay,
mm.
right. You can actually see Malur taking notes that she's all geared up to for her counseling session after this. I'm just teasing you, right? Okay. Then we move on. From awareness is where we can actually help the person establish their aims and goals without that
Mhm.
degree of awareness, that aha moment, right? What happens is the person can't take the next step. At least from my experience, I've seen this. Or they blindly move towards some form of like false goals and aims, but somewhere along the way they find that they're still confused. They're
Okay.
still feeling the pain. And then that's largely because that exploration process hasn't brought them to a deep degree of awareness. What's really causing you this pain?
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. And that's that. So and that's what psychological counseling actually does. It actually helps them go down deeper, very objectively, go down deep within themselves to actually understand what's really causing you this difficulty. And that's why people seek help, and hence that's why I call it a helping model, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, once you've reached a degree of awareness, then you actually help the person establish their aims and goals. Then you generally what we do is we put on a guidance hat, so we become somewhat like a coach. And sometimes I actually refer to leaders in the organization, says maybe this is something you have a coach, maybe this is what you could actually refer to the coach. Since now you have this clarity, take you to the next step. So let maybe the coach can handle you. They're better equipped to actually handle the situation. So in therapeutic conditioning, we also are trained to actually provide guidance. This is when we actually act like a springboard,
Hmm.
right, for clients to bounce out their ideas and so on, right? And stage three is when they're all set, ready to go and to develop strategies. But I must share with you, stage three is not similar to stage two. Stage three is when they develop strategies so that they really have an understanding about themselves and they can avoid such occurrence in the future.
Hmm.
I would say avoid such instances in the future. So it actually helps them to, have their own healing process in place. If I face such a situation, yeah, I'm aware of it, so therefore I know what I need to do, and voila, right? I can basically counsel myself or help myself,
Nice.
right? Yeah, so that's it. What it does. But if you can just flip through the slides, I'll share with you how deeply stage one and stage two grows. Right. So stage one actually, identifies, clarifies their problems, takes them through action plans and so on, setting the stage for stage two.
Hmm.
Right. And with stage two, you actually do a bit of self-reflection. Yep. If you go back one slide earlier, Malar, you see we have actually explored strategies, action plans. But is this what you really want? Would this work for you?
Hmm.
And that's important for
Nice.
someone to actually establish. And then you go on to actually say, the focus on how you're going to achieve your goals and develop strategies to generate. Well, if you look at the last statement, self-confidence and hope,
Mm,
that you don't regress back.
mm,
The regression does happen. It's a natural human tendency. So when that happens again, the person is better equipped in the second round of counseling. Sometimes I do see my clients again, and they have already formulated in their head what's the best therapeutic um, aid that they need. Right.
mm, mm.
Right. So yeah,
Nice. Nice, nice. I think you've just taken us through three very simple steps that's very useful, which is awareness. Do I know what is it that I want? And helping us to dig deep, actually, why I want what I want.
that's
Because then
true.
I will know whether the awareness is actually at a surface level or at a deeper level, right? And once I'm clear what's the problem I'm trying to resolve for myself, then I would be ready to commit to strategies. And if I commit to strategies, I believe that then psychologically I know where it started, and when I shift that, that should not recur. And if it recurs, I also have skills in a way I think psychologically to get me out of it before it becomes bigger for me, right?
That's right.
So
And that's where you actually make a commitment. So I couldn't have summarized it better, Malar.
Hmm.
Stage three actually, emphasizes on commitment. Are you really going to work towards that? Because it's that emotional healing sometimes can be, the strategy could be something that the person doesn't really want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's interesting, right? Because when you talk about people don't want, why won't people want it?
Ah, that's interesting. Why won't people want something that's good for them?
Yeah, exactly, right. I mean, and I think this puzzles, um, if not everybody, definitely puzzles me because, uh, we tend to look at people as being objective. If something is good for you, just take it, right? But we know our life issues are not like that. If everybody knows health, being healthy is important, eating healthy food is important, right? It's as simple as that, but not everybody walks that journey. And there are reasons. We label them, we can judge them, but there are reasons, right? So can you maybe, give us some light into why is it that, and I think that's really important in connecting deeper to people's aim, right? Why won't people take the path that is logical and that's good for them?
Um, um, well, we all have expectations, right? We all have our set of beliefs and assumptions that I think this is good for me, right? And therefore, even if something, and in a therapeutic session, they can see that, hey, what I really want isn't something, what I really need is something that I do not expect. Is quite the opposite, right? Therefore, people will naturally have that resistance. And
Mm.
just to share, okay, give you a simple examples, right? Okay,
Yeah, that'd be good.
why don't you talk to him? Sometimes we say, why don't you talk to him about it? Now I don't want to,
Okay. I
right?
can
So,
role play that with you.
yeah, right. No, right. No role play here, please. I've had a long day. I've had a long day, right? So, sometimes the suggestion would be like, why don't you talk to him about it? You say something, you have this disagreement. Why don't you go and talk to him about it? Bring him out for lunch or something. Nah, I don't want to, right? He just doesn't understand what I have to say. He refuses to listen to me. So when we have all of these assumptions and sets of belief, right, it prevents us. That's number one. Number two would be sometimes our own personal, and we commonly use this word ego, right? Just get that the refusal. I would rather use the word the refusal of the person to actually want to have to converse, like in this particular situation, to converse. I simply refuse. And if you actually track what causes that refusal, right? Why does the person refuse? You can dig it down inside and go to their core beliefs. What they believe. No, everyone should respect my opinion. And then on top of that, you have got their assumptions and beliefs. When I share, people should listen. I'm right when I say this. I care equally as much as you uncover all of this, and then you show someone, hey, don't you think this is causing you the pain? So that's exactly what happens in stage one. You explore the existing, yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm getting from you is that, when we what for us when we are looking at another person's life and judging them, why won't you take what is obvious? They are going through their own struggle in their head,
Mm.
right? As to what they think, what they believe, where they're
Yeah.
operating from. And
Mm.
because of their beliefs, where they're operating from, that is why they're not able to resolve that issue or come out of their comfort zone,
That's
right?
true.
Because they either don't feel safe or
You're right.
yeah, they don't feel safe, right? So, and it's very difficult to explain safety to another person, right? Because if I can speak up, I don't understand why you can't speak up. If I can confront, I don't understand why you can confront, because we are always looking at it from our lens. If I can, why can't you? Right? And I think that's what people who want different results and are stuck need to be need someone to mirror that to them and need to desire to get out of that, right? And which is why I think when you talk about digging deeper, what is the problem may not be the problem, is what you're saying, is what I'm
Yeah.
understanding. Yeah.
See, what we are trained to do is to do that, what you just mentioned, without sounding judgmental, because we're
Mm,
human ourselves, you see,
right.
without sounding judgmental. That's the difficult part. Sometimes it's just so tempting during a therapeutic session for me to just want to spill out the, hey, here's a suggestion, dude. Right?
Okay,
And
I have a question to ask. I have to interject.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
so sorry because
yeah.
I'm sitting in between two very intelligent people, one doctor or one soon to be doctor, both counseling. I want to know, okay,
Good
from a
doctor here.
business point of view, right? From a
Yeah,
business
yeah.
work point of view, let's say
Mm,
I'm a leader and I come into an organization.
yeah.
I'm meeting up with new colleagues,
Mm.
and I'm trying to understand my circumstances, my work, my new role. How will counseling help?
Oh,
How
yeah,
do
yeah.
I help? How can you help me up my
Oh, right.
performance?
Yeah.
Because I still come with my pains that maybe I've not met up with yet, or I've not healed or come to be aware of, or so. Maybe you can give us an example if we break it down in a corporate environment.
Sure, sure. I think that's hitting the nail on the head because we're helping leaders working in a corporate environment, right? Okay, so
Mhm.
but let's just say we've gone from understanding what a therapeutic session does. Let's just apply it on a case study, right?
Okay.
So Malar, I think I've got, yeah, that's right. Okay, so is that case study number one? If you flip back one slide. Okay, so this relates very much to Ashok's question. Here's someone, and if you flip to case slide, the second slide, the slide after this, right? I'll share the context, right? So
Okay. Okay.
I actually, okay, let me give you the context of this. So this is something that I'm sharing, and very much relates to Ashok's question. If you're coming to a new workplace. So imagine a person, a woman in the mid 40s. Okay, so a person in the mid 40s. Okay, in this particular case, which is really a case that I actually handle, right? Okay, it was a woman, right, in her mid 40s, very experienced. And if you look at her, I mean, here's somebody you would actually look at. I'm actually paying her a compliment. She's like, she's poised, she looks confident and all of that. And the instance when she saw me, this was after she was a participant in my workshop and she came to talk to me right after the workshop. And she was having this pain within herself, right? Okay. And she started the conversation this way. And can you flip back to the previous slide, please? Hey, Chris, is it difficult to work with technical people? Can I ask you something? Is it difficult to work with technical people? Obviously, something is going on inside her head.
Hmm.
Just obviously have that perception or that little block within herself, or I would just call it a labeling tendency.
Okay.
Technical people seem like they are difficult people. All right. So I naturally ask her, do you find it difficult? Let's give her a name. Let's call her Muller. So Muller, do you find it difficult? Right. Okay. Right. Now, if you flip back to the next slide, Muller, right, this is what she told me next. She said, you know what? Okay, let me tell you something about myself. I'm new here, Chris, right? But for more than 10 years, I've been working in an advertising industry, right? I was headhunted and decided to take up the offer in this new organization, which is a manufacturing organization. Now let's ask ourselves, why is she making this comparison? She's bringing, this is who I was before, and this is the environment that I'm in right now,
Hmm.
right? And I can't seem to manage. Why? And then she goes on to explain it. If we can prompt to the next slide, um, the technical team, when she presented some of her ideas for them to come up with a new product sample, they said they were too busy and they just refused to comply. So barely into 3 months at work, right, this leader who's leading her own department, right, it's finding it difficult because she's not getting cooperation from her colleagues. Now she's a leader in her own right. And in the corporate world, when you don't get cooperation and you're new to the organization, that's a lot of things, that can actually run in your head.
Hmm.
Right. So, can counseling help? Yes, it can. You can also go talk to a mentor, right? You could also seek out the help of a coach. Yeah, that's and they probably can give you insights. But it's good that Ashok mentioned earlier, perhaps there's something I've not resolved from the past,
Mhm.
right? So in counseling, what we do differently is we ask her, um, did you face situations like this in a previous organization?
Mm.
What does this tell you about yourself? I
Mm.
mean, is there something that you can uh, that it brings to an awareness about yourself, that comes to light about yourself, and we probe that self
Mm.
psychologically, your
Nice,
thoughts,
nice.
your feelings,
Mhm.
and your reactions. Have you had conflicts like this where people oppose your ideas so that they just refuse to give you cooperation?
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Thanks, Chris. Ooh, okay. So I'm getting a lot of questions in my head now, because
Okay.
I'm starting out. Okay, so what I'm hearing is yes, counseling can help this individual, this new leader, right?
Mhm.
Because she's stuck with a certain. What I'm hearing from you, is she's stuck with a certain belief system. That's why there's certain labels, right? And what you have done is help her go back to the past, right? In a way, right, to understand whether this is a recurring pattern, because that kind of sums it up in your step 3, isn't it, where you said you want to ensure that this does not reoccur. What are the recurrence in that sense, so
Mm.
I see that. And when you talk about label, the first thing that came to my mind was, my God, in corporations we have labels all the time, isn't it? Whether it's intergenerational labels, whether we call them the strawberries, or the millennials, and what have you got? We label, and we have a certain belief system, right? That we just keep working on, and that affects a leader's performance, doesn't it?
It does. It does, because labeling obviously influences your thought processes, as
Right,
it
right.
does with Muller over here, right? I mean, I'm just relating the person in the case study. I've just given her a name. I call her Muller, right? Okay. If
Okay,
you just
okay,
go on to the next slide, I'll show you how this has actually exacerbated,
okay, okay.
right? So she got upset. She argued with them, and then what happens is she now has uh, no room for cooperation, no room for communication anymore. They just shut her off. And what she told me in that conversation was, they said, if you think it's that simple, why don't you do it yourself? I said,
Fair
Mm,
lah.
I'm no technical person, right? And then if you can move on to the next slide, I'll tell you what happened to her next. Now, day in and day out, right? What happened for the next few weeks after that was that she felt as if nobody likes me, nobody
mm,
appreciates me at the workplace. Even I find that even in my own department, my my subordinates,
mm.
my employees, right, they have this, they don't perceive me as a good leader, and all of this comes up, right? And this
Right.
juncture, I would ask her, is there any evidence? Did anyone actually tell you they don't like you? Did anyone
Yeah.
ever come up to you and tell
Me,
you
I
that they
would
don't
probably
like you?
say I know people don't like me. I know when I go
That's right.
into a meeting.
That's what you think. You see, it's your perception.
Mm,
And this perception is something that you create yourself. Hence,
right.
when I actually, in this slides, I actually put that little, what do you call that? That
Clubs.
thing that looks like a bubble over there, right?
Top,
That cloud.
top bubble.
Yeah, that's something that's not spoken. It's the unspoken um, reflection of thought.
Right.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Nice.
Everybody hates me. It's no evidence. No one comes up to you. No one sends you an email saying, "Hey, dear Muller, I hate you. Warm
Mm,
regards." That's that. There's no evidence. You just build that up in your head, and you believe that to be the truth. So that it's already causing you a pain. First the
right, right.
labeling. First the
Hmm.
labeling, the difficult, right? Then the refusal to actually understand the person from a different point of view, that persistent argument, I'm right,
Mm,
right? Okay. And then, so when we bring all this together, and then we ask her, say, hey, Muller, have you ever had such situations in the previous working environment, in the previous work, in your previous
mm.
companies? Have you ever faced things like this before? Let's talk frankly. Let's open up. Let's explore Muller. That's what we do,
Mm.
and
Right. So,
that's how
Chris,
deep stage one goes.
yeah, I
right.
know. But let me ask you this, right? So if I if
Mhm.
you asked me and I'm the mother, if I say, well, no one has told to my face, but I know someone told my good friend Ashok. Ashok told me about it. They talk
That's
behind my
hearsay.
back.
Then we talk about, then we explore hearsay. How does hearsay, how does gossip affect you? What are your thoughts about it? Are you willing to confront the person? There are ways, there are communication techniques to actually confront the person. If you hear
Sure.
something that they say, not to your face, right?
Yeah.
So,
So
and
I
then
think
we
this is
explore that we are willing
fantastic.
to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, Chris, this is fantastic because what you're doing is okay. The way I see it is this is helping leaders' performance, right?
It does,
Yeah,
because it
and
certainly affects Muller in that case study
that's
context,
right.
right?
That's right. Because what
Yeah,
I'm
it's
seeing is,
affecting,
yeah,
yeah.
there are certain thought patterns that they're holding on to, is their belief systems, and that's causing them the pain. But as a counselor, when you come in, what you're doing is helping them see whether it's real or whether it's perceived, and then help break that down to help them move to the next level of performance. You know, and this is a classic case. Now, the other, I like to talk about another case study that you had alluded to, and I think this is more. I've seen this happen a lot of times in an organization. Yes, everyone appears to be working towards an aligned, shared purpose,
Mm.
but then everyone has got KPIs that they're working towards, and we have to work
Yeah.
with different departments, right?
Mhm.
We've got the shared alignment, and we've got our own KPIs,
That's right.
and then there's pressures in terms of revenue, and there's pressures in terms of manpower, and we've got to balance all of this, and the two heads meet together, and there's conflict because I've got to protect my team, I've got to meet my results, I've got to deliver organizational, and there are conflicts. This can be with people who have been around, not new, been around. Walk us through how you can
Oh,
help
right. Okay.
diffuse this.
This is where I was actually brought in to actually do to engage in an employee assistance program
Wow,
for the
employee assistance
management
program.
team.
Okay.
To have therapeutic sessions for the entire management team. But it was done very well because the managing director wanted it in such a way. It's like, okay, we do not need to know what's happening, but I want to see everyone, right, straighten out their issues and perform. So it was good. It was driven by leadership, right?
Okay.
So, and what prompted me to actually walk into the organization to conduct these sessions for all for the senior management team, right? Was this particular conflict. Here's a conflict between a salesperson and a logistic person. So imagine
Right.
salesperson meets the client, makes all the world of a promise to
Yep.
them, right? And does not pay any attention to the standard operating procedure which logistics and operations look after. So if but standard operating procedure says we deliver in 10 days, the sales guy promised the client we'll give it to you in 5 days,
Right.
right? And then what you see here is a conflict that can escalate right up to a point to which it even talks like both of them washing their hands off and saying it's not my problem, I've done my job, but she's not.
Hmm.
So where does teamwork come into play? And it affects the morale of their respective teams
Of
because
course.
if the
Yep.
bosses are fighting,
Hmm.
right, then it's like, hey, I better not be seen sitting here with lunch with you because I don't want my boss seeing me having lunch with you. It even boils down to that. And the managing director seeing this, he said, no, this is not where I want to take my leaders, right?
Hmm.
Okay, they are supposed to be someone who actually watches out for me in their respective roles, right? So he says, right, let's it's more than just it requires some form of well he used the word inner healing in this particular
Okay.
situation, but he said we need inner healing, people. Right? So yeah, and what prompted this was like, I was just going to facilitate personality profiling for a team building program.
Okay.
And then he pulled me aside for lunch, and he said, I have issues like this. And this was when we were presenting the program to him. We haven't even implemented the program. I was doing just a small part of that program, just the personality profiling, doing who is what, and how does your team work together as a conflict. And I was doing that portion. And he pulled me out during that presentation, during the tea break, and says, what if I had this issue?
Hmm.
Would this program help? I shared with him frankly, well, the program is definitely where everybody can have fun. But I think this issue requires a bit more deeper intervention, I said. And then he came up with the whole idea. He says, yeah, they all need inner healing. I am clueless as to why he said that, but he aligned with the idea post the team building program, right? We met up and we engaged in these therapeutic sessions.
Okay.
The leader was open to it, right?
Mhm.
He says everyone needs to let go of their hurts,
Okay.
which causes the conflicts,
Okay.
right? And it's beyond just anger and fear and rage and what have you not. But it's more like, sometimes even as simple as, hey, yeah, we had this conflict. Can I forgive you?
Hmm.
This was all brought out. It was like, so we had 5 sessions for each member of the senior management team, for them to just simply uncover whatever they felt could be an issue that stifles peak performance.
Right, right. And
So
this is very, very interesting because we don't normally hear about this. And I
yeah,
think this is something,
this is rare. This is rare. This is really rare.
I
Sometimes
don't
I go in
agree.
the guise of conflict management
Yeah.
programs, and we actually are doing a lot of this therapeutical,
No,
right?
I agree, Christopher, that
Yeah.
this is rare. But what I'm hearing is, or at least from my experience, what I'm seeing is this is important. I
Yes.
think leaders need to understand some of these intervention skills, if you might say that, also.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, of course, the next best option is to have you in an office. Like I'm watching the movie Billions on Netflix. There is a counselor permanently in the office, but where they cannot afford that, maybe
Right.
perhaps certain senior leaders may, just like how senior leaders are sent for coaching, maybe some senior leaders may need to have certain counseling intervention skills, perhaps,
Yeah.
Skills.
because
They
like
have.
what you mentioned earlier about an hour ago, we're all humans, we're all leaders, we're all humans, we all come in into the workplace with our pains and our ego, and we all want to be right, isn't it?
We have, like what you mentioned, our KPIs. And,
Yes, and there's that boiler pressure also,
yeah, that's
where we
right.
have the business results and all. And what I'm hearing from you is this is an impact. Now, I mean, you may not have to mention someone's name or whatever, but from what you've taken through your leaders before, have you seen a shift in their whole attitude, their mindset, their performance, even where not only their leadership performance improves, but their family life, their social life?
Not gone to the extent of family life and so on. I do get lots of testimonials, which is
Nice.
what I use in my personal reflection, and what
Sure.
works, how did it work, and I
Mm,
relate it back to my to the literature,
mm,
right? Okay, so that's one. But I actually, to share with you, I actually saw this happen um, um, in an organization after a what you would call it, an acquisition,
okay.
right? So there was the old boss and there's the new boss, right? And their respective teams, and the program was actually, like I mentioned earlier, was supposed to be a conflict resolution program,
Mm, mm,
right? But it was more than that. So finally, what we did was we just dropped half the content and
nice.
got them to actually stand and see how they could actually come together, right? And they were quite the senior team, actually, the first level of the senior management and the second tier, right, in that particular program. And they had I would say, on the second day, what we did was, after the tea break, we decided, and it was all decided on the first day when I had drinks with the leaders in the evening after the
Mm,
program, and we decided that we'll just cut off the content. They can read it on their own, right? And we're just going to come together to see how we can actually build a more united team.
Nice.
Right. And
Nice.
yeah, this was interesting because the as I said, okay, so this united team is going to take this new team, right? This merged company, this acquired company, this merged company towards the next level, right? There was a company that was already there, and this other company came to buy over, so there was this acquisition, and I said that, right, okay, now we're just going to take it to the next level, and they had a term for it that says we are the team that's going to create the legacy. Well, I like that.
Nice, nice.
Right.
You see,
So,
Chris, more
yeah.
often than not, when we talk about mergers and two organizations coming together, and then they set
Mm,
strategic goals and come up with a 5-year, 10-year plans and what have you got.
yeah.
And what you've done, and what you've shared with us is an element, a very secret ingredient that is missing in many organizations. If together with the whole strategic plan, I believe, if they can even have these kind of therapeutic or counseling interventions to connect the humans, to help them connect, to help them heal, I personally believe the performance will be raised. Not only the
I would
leadership,
certainly
but
agree
also
with you.
organization.
Right. Yeah. I certainly agree with you. Yeah. And a large part of my work now, even in my workshops and all of this, are geared towards creating that awareness, the
Fantastic.
importance of this. Yeah.
We've got another 2 minutes, but I just want to ask you one question about awareness. How do you help someone have the courage to be aware?
Ooh, that's a very interesting question. Yeah, it does take courage to have that awareness because sometimes you're confronted with a strategy that, while we're in the exploration stage, they can see the answer, but it's not something they want. So it takes courage, right?
So I
It
guess if
takes
they don't
courage
want to
for
take
them to
action.
actually um, to assess their strengths and whether they can actually face up to, that alternative, which is not something that they desire. So it's very personal, and it differs from person to person actually.
Okay.
But if I can answer your question specifically, is the personal strength. Since people are different, they have different strengths, right? So which part of their personal strength can they actually use to take courage and adopt the alternative, which is not something desired.
Nice, nice. Thank you, Chris, because really this requires courage. And leaders, if they can have the courage to
Mm,
go deep dive, to be
right.
self-aware, to really face their past or their actions and their belief systems and break it, I really believe they will bring themselves up to the next level of performance. Sorry, Mother, I took away your time to talk. We already hit 1 hour. Sorry.
Yeah, I told
Right.
you. I told you this guy is dangerous. Um,
Which guy? The two guys here.
no, no,
Yeah.
no. Christopher
Ashok.
is
Yeah, I
very,
was just referring to
very,
Ashok.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Christopher is dangerous.
Yeah.
I told you that, Ashok. Of
Mm.
course, Christopher will agree that I need counseling because of all the remarks I make.
I
Right?
was just teasing you, Mother. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
And
I'm an
thank you
ardent
for
fan of
summarizing things, Ashok and Malar. I mean, I could not have summarized it any better. Right.
Oh,
And
thank you.
I
Thank
took
you.
some notes on what you have actually said, how you summarized it. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, I think it's fantastic. I mean, really, thank you for saying yes. Thank you for coming on the show and giving us, I think, I mean, it was a very short session, but you gave us clarity about, defining therapy. And if we are human, we will carry some psychological pain. And this psychological pain can affect the kind of behaviors, thinking, feeling, and action at work, which then affects our productivity. And as a leader, then, when you are carrying a pain, an unresolved pain, and it impacts, how you make your decisions, how you make your choices, how you show up, it then affects the whole team. So if you can start healing the leaders, I think it's fantastic because heal leaders, right, will then help other people heal because they would then be able to understand the pain of their people, right? I've heard this quote, I think, people hurt people,
Wow.
Yeah, and that
right?
takes courage, as what Ashok mentioned earlier. It takes courage to have that awareness, say, yeah, I think this part of me should be healed, right?
Yeah.
So that takes a lot of courage.
Yeah. So I want to take that the opposite way and say healed leaders will heal people, right? And when we heal people, we will actually have a healthy community at the workplace. And I think that's what engagement is all about, isn't it? Because we're trying to get a group of people who can bring their best self. And we all will agree that we cannot bring our best selves if parts of us is bruised and broken. So thank
That's
you very much, Chris. Before we let you go, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, thank you so much for summarizing it beautifully, right? I think in this 1 hour, you've allowed me to actually define what happens in a counseling without having to academically define what counseling is, right? I think I'd just like to stress on the fact that if we can disassociate the word taboo from seeking help, right, and the counseling, or mental health awareness and all of that, if we can just disassociate the word taboo, that's a
Thank,
start.
thank
Nice.
you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you a lot, Chris.
With
Thank you
Right,
very
thank you.
much.
Thank you, Ashok.
that,
Thank you.
we'll have to say bye to Christopher for now. Thank you. Ha. How was it?
Fantastic session. Fantastic session. I loved it because this is an area that we don't talk about enough, and I'm glad that you brought, because it's not about coaching is better than counseling. I think you need both. And I
Mm.
think it's not a binary world in that sense, right? We need to have both. And I think we need to equip ourselves and our leaders with both.
Yeah, and in fact, if I had to summarize what Chris said, is we can only resolve issues if we know where it was created. If it was
Exactly.
created at a psychological level
Mhm.
and it comes to your awareness when you can't resolve an issue, that's where you need to go and solve it. And as human beings, all of us have a psychology about us which we may or may not understand, right? So it's really getting the help and support that is required depending
Sure.
on where our challenges are there, right?
Mm.
All right. So with that, thank you. Thank you very much, Ashok, for asking the good questions. And I know you said you're going to have a learner's mindset, but I saw how you jumped in. But I've learned a lot from the session, as I told you I would.
Mhm.
With that, I think it's good to probably say goodbye to people because it's past 4 minutes now.
Yeah.
So this is Malar signing off from Kuala Lumpur, and
And this is Ashok from down south Singapore.
yeah. With that,
Bye
until
bye.
we see you next week, stay safe.
See you. Bye bye.